Welcome to Unity of Charlotte on this beautiful, gorgeous morning. I do say welcome to Unity of Charlotte because when we welcome you to a place where you can nurture a deep and mature experience of God through the practice of unity principles. And simply put, but profoundly put, we are here to love, grow, and serve. And so it's good to have you here in the sanctuary, and good to have those of you joining us on Zoom. We love your presence through the technology, and we welcome you to the warm place here in our hearts. Join us in the sanctuary for an extra special experience, because receiving the messages that we get is a swift path into the heart and into your spiritual journey. So do find a way to get out of your jammies or leave your slippers on and come on in. So I'm Reverend Pat Dre, and I'm so glad that you chose to join us here today. And we're going to start today by saying our statement of oneness from the heart, sincerely. So join with me in saying, there is one presence and one power in my life and the universe, God, the good, omnipotent. Today's prayer from Daily Word, this is a gift from Unity Worldwide, a wonderful gift. Holy, I discover holiness everywhere and in everyone. And take a breath and just settle in place and know that you are in a holy place today, because wherever you sit, it is holy. There are certain places I visit where the presence of God feels especially near, places that feel holy. These may include churches and other houses of worship, shrines, favorite places in nature. Any destination where I become vividly aware of the divine presence, and that is holy ground. I remember these words from the Prayer for Protection, the Unity poet, James Dillett Freeman. Wherever I am, God is. The divine presence I know lives within me, and it is a true essence of my life and of every life. Today, my understanding expands, and I discover the divine presence all around me and find holiness everywhere. Every person is a holy being. Every place is holy ground. Then Jacob woke from his sleep and said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." Genesis 28:16. And yes, this is a holy place. And speaking of that, you all have an opportunity and an open invitation to sing with the choir. And you don't have to commit to a long-term commitment, but if you like to sing, and if you've noticed that singing raises your spirit, you could just get up there one Sunday or two Sundays and sing with the choir. So that is a beautiful invitation, and it is open to all. So thank you for remembering that. And now I want to talk a little bit about our announcements. I'm going to start by sharing something that reminds me of the teachings of unity. And I've been reading a book called The Tracker. Now, it's a book by Tom Brown Jr., who is a tracker probably about my vintage. He was probably born right about when I was born, which was around the turn of the last century. But anyway, he was taken under the wing of a Aboriginal American, a Native American called, I'll remember his name, Stalker Wolf, and taught how to track. And it became his absolute passion. And this morning before I came, because I can't put the book down, it has so many spiritual messages. And the little boys were in Boy Scout. He and his best friend, Rick, were in Boy Scouts. And why did they get into Boy Scouts? Well, because any time in the woods was good time, no matter whether it was with the Boy Scouts or without. Most of the time it was without. Well, in the Barren Pines, the Pine Barren area of New Jersey, which has been an awful lot of wilderness and relatively unspoiled, they were with the Boy Scouts and there was a terrible storm. Now I say terrible because it was a flash, heavy drop of snow. For these two boys who spent their life in the woods, this was extraordinary. It was fascinating. You see, it's all perception. The rest of the boys, and they went off into the woods to see the storm, which was the most magnificent revelation of nature. And of course, they were very weathered to the woods, so they didn't get cold and they weren't afraid, and they knew how to stay warm by piling pine needles around them. They'd been in many storms, and here is what happened to them. When they finally went back, the boys were shivering cold. The scoutmaster didn't think he could build a fire. And he was so frightened, and everyone was so frightened that they were going to die and die very soon. But the boys were warm and confident, and they built the fire, and they showed the boys how to build a windbreak using the picnic tables, and how to prevent the wind from coming in. And in a couple of hours, the boys were all warm and toasty and willing to go out and feed the fire that they had built. And so it was an amazing time. And I'm reminded that nothing can be frightening as long as you understand it and you don't resist it and you're fascinated by it and your curiosity is piqued and you know how to build a fire and a windbreak, and then it becomes the greatest adventure there ever could be. So just remember, God recreates through each one of us. And now for our other announcements today. The Unity Book Club will next meet on August 21st at 11:30 in the morning by Zoom. The Affirmative Prayer and Meditation group is going strong twice a month. It will meet next on Tuesday, August 16th at 7:15 and goes to 8 p.m. And this sets a prayerful energy for the church, the city, the world, and the ecology. It's facilitated by Maria Malave via Zoom. Well, you're now appointed, apparently. She looks surprised, but she always looks surprised with wonder. So on Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m., Dialogue as Service continues to meet related to our spiritual dialogue of the path of initiation and the nature of the soul. And we will have a next book coming up, not real soon, but soon enough. Our current book is Creative Thinking with Barbara Rolfe on Zoom. It's truly a spectacular experience. And so that brings us to the new and wonderful announcement that we now have a children's program. And so feel free to bring your neighbor children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, and your own children. Mine are kind of tall now, but they could still use it, I will tell you. They sometimes act like children, but I kind of like that about them. And so If you have a prayer request, we love your prayer requests. Please send those to us by the link on the Unity of Charlotte Zoom link. And do call Silent Unity at any time of the day or night by calling 1-800-NOW-PRAY for a personal affirmative prayer. And now, because God does recreate through us, we have a wonderful recreation going on today with our beloved Reverend Adrian Calabrese, who brings with us her heart, her soul, and her spiritual energy and teachings that stay in the heart and in the soul. We welcome you. We welcome you, Reverend Adrian. She gave us a very powerful talk 2 weeks ago, and now to you, my dear.
All right, thank you. Okay, get a little situated. I feel short today. Did I shrink? Or did that? It's possible. I know, I'm getting old. Unbelievable. I feel a little short. All right. Well, I might have to stand without my shoes, I think. I usually increase my height by a couple of inches. But anyway, so good to be back again, everybody. I hope you're doing well today. Feeling bright and cheery. It is beautiful out there. And today I'm talking about a gotcha. Don't you love that word? Gotcha. I gotcha. A gotcha is not usually a welcome thing. It's kind of uncomfortable. We feel a little bit like we've been had, that something happened and, somebody got us, gotcha good. And sometimes those gotchas are simply consequences. And that's what we're talking about today, spiritual consequences. And years ago, in the 50s, 1950s to the 90s, there was a television show on called Truth or Consequences. And some of you might be old enough, I am, to remember that. This guy, Ralph Edwards, was one of the hosts. And then Bob Barker, you remember Bob Barker was a big animal activist. And then he became the show's host. And there were contestants on this show, and they were required to answer questions. And truthfully and accurately. And if they did not answer a trivia question accurately or truthfully, they would have to suffer the consequences, which was usually some ridiculous stunt that they had to participate in and look like fools. And most people really enjoyed that part of the show. Because they would have to perform this crazy stunt, but half the time they would not answer the questions accurately just because they wanted to do the stunts. So people were eager for this craziness, right? But the consequences there, were not so awful. And at the end of every show, Bob Barker used to say this little catchphrase. He used to say, hoping all your consequences are happy ones at the end of each show. I thought about that. And I said, consequences are not always all happy ones. And what are spiritual consequences? Why do they happen? When do they happen? And what to do when they do? And this is a two-parter. This is my first two-parter that I'm doing here at Unity of Charlotte. So next time I see you in a couple of weeks, we'll do part 2. So I'm going to have a cliffhanger here. So keep you interested, keep you coming back. I hope. So today we're talking about, what are these things called spiritual consequences, and why? Why are there spiritual consequences? And it can be a scary thought because the consequences are generally unseen. They're happening on a supernatural level. And metaphysicians believe that we create our world with our thoughts. And that is one of our tenets of metaphysics, that we can create, we do create our reality with our thoughts. And when we act upon those thoughts, or we don't act upon those thoughts, there are effects. Something in the universe is affected. And we are the ones who own that. We have the onus. We are either going to act, not act, have a thought, act, don't act, our choice. But regardless, there are consequences, whether we act or we don't. And I know that sounds a little scary. You know the word karma. I'm not throwing that word around today. Let me tell you, it's too complicated. But let's suffice to say that karma in Sanskrit means word, deed, or act. Something you do that has a future or immediate consequence. And it's not necessarily a debt. It's always called a karmic debt, but it's not a debt. It's simply a payback. And that can be positive or it can be negative. Spiritual consequences then are the result of thoughts, words, deeds, acts. And they happen on this level that we are not always aware of. When are these spiritual consequences created is the key here. When does this happen? Well, it happens always. Always. And that's a word that is a little scary. You know about the universal laws. You have heard about them. Metaphysicians know about these universal spiritual laws. You've heard of the law of cause and effect. And that is a very powerful law. It is something that happens regardless of our active participation in it, our aware participation in it. It's like the natural laws. The sun comes up in the morning, goes down at night. We have nothing to do with it. Here, though, with spiritual laws, they're going to happen, but we do have things to do with it. We are just not aware that we do. And so when we think a thought or put something into action, we activate an energy. And this is another tenet that we believe as metaphysicians. We activate energy. Now, we can activate it in a positive or a negative way, but we are activating it by thought, by word, by deed, or not. Once the thought hits us, it is what we do with it that counts. And this universal spiritual law of cause and effect is set into motion. Starts moving, starts moving, starts moving, starts moving. And what's happening to that energy? Energy is not stagnant. It keeps moving. It keeps recreating itself. It keeps changing. And it keeps adapting to thought. This stuff is a little heavy stuff. And quantum physics decided it was going to make it even heavier for us to understand. But in essence, energy is God. And when we put energy out there, when we send messages to the universe, prayer, whatever it happens to be, thought, whatever it happens to be, it is activated. It snaps into action. The law of cause and effect snaps in. But we are often and sometimes not aware that it has, because it's constant. It's like you can never not communicate. You're always communicating, whether you're communicating verbally or non-verbally. You cannot not communicate, because you could say not a word and still communicate just by an expression, Same a thing, as my grandmother used to say. Same a thing with the law of energy in the universe. We are creating it without realizing it many times. Ultimately, we are the creators. We have the God within us. We are doing the manipulating. God is not doing it to us. Every time we have this thought, every time we have a sense of what we want or don't want, it's the slightest thing. And we are creating in that moment our future. There are some things that happen to us that have no logical explanation. We say, what did I do? I didn't do anything. How did that happen to me? I'm here to tell you we did do something. We just don't know what we did, when we did it, or how we did it, or what we put into the universe to affect this life of ours, because everything we do affects our life. When that law snaps into effect, it's effective immediately. It starts working immediately, but you may not see the results of that, the effect of that cause immediately. It may happen a little bit later. It depends on the power of the thought and what has been put forward. what has been put into the universe. Is that me? Am I pee popping here? I hope not. No? Okay. So what are we putting into the universe? These things that seem to not have a logical explanation have an explanation. We are affecting them. We have this responsibility. You've heard the term a million times. Change your mind, change your life. It's true. The thought you think engenders a greater response than you realize. So you might think that, oh, you're just having a casual thought, but that can be, if it persists and if it is held onto for an extended period of time, will become a greater and greater energy. What you focus on becomes stronger. And when that happens, it sends a stronger message. It sends a stronger batch of energy out into the universe, if you will. So what are we doing? We are creating something. We are causing something to happen. And we can do it whether it's immediate or it's long term. Circumstances that occur from thoughts are consequences that happen on a spiritual level. Now, we have to adjust our thinking if we want to have control over the effect. And some things we can control and some things we can't immediately. And when we think we can't control it, it's because we have been feeding an energy into the universe that we are not conscious of having fed into the universe. And I will give you some examples of that. But the longer we persist in the particular way of thinking, the stronger that energy is going to be, and the stronger it's going to have effect in the world. And we are seeing it now. We are living in the age of cause and effect. We are looking at it in society, in the world, in our lives, in disease, in transmission, in war, in hate, in prejudice. But I have good news. I always like to give some good news after I give you some terrible news. Here comes the good stuff. You're going to say, this lady, we don't need her back here. We need to hear this. We came to church to hear this. Let me tell you, there is good news. There's very good news. Because sometimes the consequences are good. The spiritual consequences are good. We're here today. This is a spiritual consequence. We are here because we put a cause out there in the universe. I'm getting up, I'm taking a shower, I'm going to church. And the effect is where we sit right now and what we are gleaning from this moment together. It's a good consequence. We do simple things and reap wonderful benefits from them. You can hold the door for someone, and you are putting a cause into the universe that has an effect. Something that simple. This doesn't have to be profound, and usually it's not. Usually it is simple things. You hold the door for someone, let's say, and they say, oh, thank you. And no, you don't think anything of it. It's just something that you do because that's who you are, and that's how you've been raised, and that's a kindness you normally give to others. You don't think of it as an energy you just put into the universe that's going to have an effect. So then immediately you might see an effect, and it may not be in kind. It may not be the same thing. So you hold the door for somebody, and then maybe you get in your car and you say, well, I have to go to the store and pick up a couple of things. And you get there and you get the best parking space there is in the lot. And you go, wow, it's under a tree. It's nice and cool. And you go, man, that's cool. But you don't think, did I put goodness out there in the energy in the world? And is it coming back to me in a spiritual consequence? Uh-huh. See, there's good stuff. There's good stuff. You donate. You donate to your church. You donate to charities, whether it's time or money or energy, whatever you donate. And you donate, and you don't think about that, as being something you want something back for. You just give because it feels good to give. But you're creating the cause of good energy into the universe, and you are going to get it back. And you might get an unexpected check in the mail. You might end up going to the store. Something you wanted is now on sale and you can finally afford it. Something like that comes back to you. Do you think of it as a spiritual consequence of something you put into the universe to begin with? You're creating it all the time with every thought, word, and deed. You can spend a lifetime caring for someone, helping them in their age, in their sickness, in their illness. Not thinking about it as being a sacrifice, but you're doing it out of love. You're putting an energy into the universe of love, and then you get sick. And somebody out of nowhere comes back and helps you. I'm standing testimony to that. You just never know where those consequences are going to end up. And let me tell you, the greatest energy you can put out is an expectation of joy. Put that out there and say, it's going to be a great day, no matter what happens. And some of them, stuff happens. And you say, why did that happen? Well, sometimes the consequences are not so happy. And we don't think of ourselves as being responsible for those negative consequences because they feel like they happen to us, but they don't. They happen because of us. They don't happen to us. They happen because of us. And I live by that statement because it helps me to stop thinking a certain way and start thinking a different way. Here's an example of when we're not so thrilled with the spiritual consequence. Stress. We've all felt stress. Years ago, that word stress, we never used it. We never really used it. And then it became this popular word, stress. Everybody's stressed. Everybody's got a lot of stress. I have so much stress. Yeah, well, who doesn't have stress? And sometimes stress is good and sometimes it's not so good. But this stress. When stress hits our lives, whether it's good or bad stress, it is a cause. It is a cause there that's happening. The thoughts about this, the overwhelm, the anxiety, whatever it is that we're feeling here is putting energy into the universe, and there is a consequence from that. And I remember having a friend who used to tell me, I'm so stressed. And I would say, well, I get it. You have a lot going on in your life. And then I get a call from him and he was just in a car accident. Hello. Spiritual consequence. You think, well, I didn't do anything. The guy hit me. No, law of attraction. You attracted it. You put the cause out there. Your stress, whatever it happened to be. Maybe you didn't really see the guy who was coming out there and, he hit you. You could have, if you were not so stressed, you wouldn't have been in that spot. Maybe, who knows? But the fact is, nothing happens to us. It happens because of us. And stress puts us into a vulnerable energy space. And that vulnerable energy space attracts negative consequences if it's a negative stress. Spiritual consequences we can't see. Maybe we have an angry exchange with someone. We meet difficult people all the time. Ooh. We meet these folks. We want to love them. We want to love them. And sometimes it's just so hard. It's just so hard. And we find ourselves in this place not thinking well of someone or thinking that someone is hurting us in some way or mean or less than we are on some level. Not as nice, not as kind, not as good because they hurt us. So we figure there's something wrong with them. But the key is there's something wrong with us. Because once we start to think a certain way, the more we think it, the stronger the energy, the greater the consequence. So you might have a person you don't get along with, and then something unexpected happens in your house. The roof leaks, or the plumbing goes, or the electricity needs to work. It doesn't always happen in kind. So what are you putting out there? What are you putting out there? Is another example. You ever have a day when you can't find your keys? I hate that. Where's my keys? My keys. Looking all, for me these days, it's my phone. Where's my phone? I don't know where it is. I'm not wearing it. So I don't have any idea where in the world it is. I don't generally have pockets. So the phone could be anywhere in the house and I can't find it. And if you can't find it, then you get more and more frustrated. And then do you ever notice that the rest of the day, little things start to happen that add to that frustration? Well, you can't find the phone. And then you try to slice a bread and you nick yourself a little bit. Or somebody calls and is very upset with you for some reason. All these little things of a day start to multiply. Because the energy you put out there, the stress energy you put out there is coming back to you in the form of a consequence. And the worst thing you could have is an expectation of doom. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you think, oh man, nothing ever goes my way, man, I'm so frustrated with my life, nothing I try ever develops. I can never make enough money. I can never have enough friends. I can never be thin enough. That's a big one for me. It's something about you, something in your head that tells you that you expect to be less than. You expect doom. You expect not to have a joyful life. So instead of expecting joy, you expect doom, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, just like the joy expectation becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more joy you put out there, the more joy you reap. Whatever you sow, you reap. You reap what you sow. Another way of putting it. These consequences can range from minor things, as I spoke to you about, or major things. You could have major tragedy hit you, major illness hit you, and you say, man, what did I do? Why did I get sick? Why did this happen to me? How did it happen to me? It happened because there's some kind of energy out there that I am putting out there that needs to be changed. It needs to be addressed. So when stuff starts to become negative in your life and consequences become negative in your life, that's a key, a clue that things need to change. That's God, the universe, telling you change is necessary. Make some changes. Make some changes. Think about it. Think on a soul level. Ask yourself soul questions. How am I responding to this situation? How is this affecting me each day? Look at it from your soul, not from your logic. Say, okay, let me go deeper here. Why did I attract this? What was going on in my life before this happened to me? What was I living through? What was hurting my soul before this negative situation happened to me? And you can do the same thing with the positive. I'm doing so great. I've been so blessed. This happened in my life. What am I doing right? What am I doing right? It works both ways. It's a universal law. When this law is invoked, it cannot be stopped. You cannot stop it. Once you put a cause of energy out there, you cannot stop it. You cannot stop it. That's a scary thought, but I'm going to give you a happy thought. You have the power to change it, and you have the power to prevent it from beginning in the first place. You have that. And you know what else we call that? Free will. We call that free will. You have the power to change the way you think. You have the power to prevent something from happening to you by your thoughts, putting a different thought out there. Put a different thought out there. Change the thought, and you can prevent the energy from having a negative consequence. You can do it. But our job right now, today, just today, because I'm going to leave you with this thought and then pick it up in 2 weeks. You know why it happens. You know what the spiritual consequences are. You know why they happen. You know when they happen. You know how they happen. But what do I do? And that's what we're going to talk about the next time I see you. But for now, I want to leave you with the thought that is powerful to me. It is something that I work on every single day. And it is awareness. Awareness. All I'm asking you to do today is become aware of your thoughts and their possible consequences. in your physical life, in your spiritual life, in your emotional life. Just become aware of them. Don't try to change them. Don't try to do anything. Just try to become aware. Do it through meditation. Do it through affirmation. Whatever you have to do that brings you back to your peace, to your center, is what you need to do to just simply become aware. Just become aware. Work on that first. That's all you have to do. You just have to, in the moment, say to yourself, okay, I'm having this feeling that I don't like. I'm having a thought that I do not like. It's like lucid dreaming. When you know you're dreaming, you got to know what your brain is doing, what your thoughts are doing. Be aware of them. So catch yourself, catch it, and say, okay, I got it. All right. There's a thing when I was in undergoing my seminary and the ministry, and my mentors were teaching me to stop a thought in motion, to change the thought immediately. Stop it. And I have given you this little trick, and I always say the word next. I'm going to stop that thought. Next, give me another one. I'm not taking that thought with me. Say the word next, say a trigger, say something to stop that thought in motion and change it to the thought you want it to be immediately when you catch it, and try to be more aware of those thoughts. So when it becomes negative to you and you're not feeling good about it is when you want to stop it. When it's a good thought, when you're all full of love and joy, you don't have to stop anything. Why would you stop that? You want to encourage that. You want to milk that, as a dear friend of mine always says, milk it when it's good. So all I'm asking you to do today is become aware in your own way. Figure out how to do that. For me, I have to cook. When I go home, I go cook, I bake something, whatever, and I'm in a zone, I love to cook. I'm happy out there. And I start to just calm down. I'm aware. I start to become aware, and our thoughts come in, and I say, oh, yeah, that's what that was about. Whatever, you can be in nature, if that's what you enjoy, exercise, if that's what you enjoy, music, art, whatever it happens to be, where you go into your place that you can steady the mind and become aware of the thought. Only then can you begin to recreate your life. Awareness is number one, and that's the main thought for today. Let's be aware. Let's cultivate awareness. Don't kill yourself to do this. It's not that hard. You just stop and say, oh, wait a minute, catch yourself. Oh, especially when the thought's negative. When the thought's positive, go for it, baby. But when the thought's negative, say, wait, let me stop right there and rethink this. Spiritual consequences can be good ones, and we can change them, and we can prevent the negative ones. And I'm going to tell you the next time I see you how to do that. So that's your cliffhanger today. But I do have an affirmation for you today, and here it is. Each day, I create positive or negative energy, circumstances, and events, and I am aware of creating situations that can lead to negative consequences for my life here on earth and the future of my soul and spirit. And so it is. And so it is. When you commit to awareness, you are halfway there. So, until I see you again, everyone, I'm hoping that all your consequences are happy ones. Thank you, everybody. God bless. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
I was laughing with Reverend Adrian about how some of the Bronx euphemisms really sing to my heart. And having had so many friends from the Bronx, being from Queens and being familiar with all things New York, I just love it. And so I thank you, Reverend Adrian, for that wonderful review of how the law of attraction works, to become aware of the thought and use that word next and go for it, baby. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. And now it is time to use the law of attraction I so look forward to a couple of weeks when she comes back for that next lesson. The law of attraction is important to me as it is to all of you, as we circulate who we are as divine creativity. And so join with me in saying our offertory prayer, prosperity blessing. Joyously, I give this gift, knowing the divine presence blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.